Excited to welcome in now head coach of the Memphis Tigers, Ryan Silverfield, one of the guys that I really respect, in particularly in the offensive line space, in terms of, man, the way you've developed offensive line, the way you've produced, and certainly in this sense, the way you've evaluated. So thanks a bunch, first of all, for jumping on and talking shop with me.
Barton, it's an honor to be here. Obviously, like the mutual respect, I love the way you guys do everything and admire your work from afar for a long time, and glad to call you a friend and excited to join you guys here today and talk a little offensive line.
Awesome. Well, look, so I think this is exciting because you're gonna actually break down some film for me, and I think this is going to be really cool because at Memphis, you sort of by necessity have to sort of project and really be detail oriented and find some guys where maybe others have missed. And so there's a couple of different profiles, body types that you're going to take us through here that have found some success with you and have been really good players for you. So I'm gonna sort of kick it to you and let's dig into the film a little bit. Dustin Woodard is a guy that just got drafted by the Patriots this spring in the NFL draft. He's a guy that we ranked as a two-star kid coming out of high school at Arizona, but clearly, you had confidence in him from the jump. So I'd love to just get a look at what you saw and some of the things that really jumped out to you when you were evaluating Dustin as a high schooler in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Dustin, I take a lot of pride in. He was a young man that when I got to Memphis, when I left the Detroit Lions to come here, he was really my first and only signee. So we really only signed, he was my only high school signee that class. And we were really his only Division I offer. He had an Army offer as well. But it was really us, and he was considering maybe going to Northern Arizona. And, I think this tape speaks for itself. He's a guy, Barton, that you were able to name a freshman All-American, which is a unique for a guy that had little offers of him. But the tape speaks for itself. And that was the exciting part about him. You kind of watched him here. The right tackle. He's a right tackle out of Chandler High School, a national powerhouse in Arizona. He plays physical, aggressive. You can see him here, sticking his face in things. High level of competition there in Arizona. Obviously, a state that we were able to actually have success for early on here at Memphis. But you can see him here, taking the small steps out of his stance. Dustin is a legit maybe 6'1.5", but like you said, just drafted by the Patriots. But you kind of see him working his hips. That's the unique thing I like to see, Barton, is see how he's able to roll his hips through here. Yeah. That's hard for high school offensive linemen to do, and then you're always going to love watching a young man finish. I think that's kind of exciting to me. So, the first two clips, on his highlight reel, you're able to sit here and say, man, this kid plays the game the way we want to.
Is there – you mentioned his height, obviously not ideal when you're looking for offensive linemen, and even his arm length, he's not an overly long player. Is there some traits that you see – that really help compensate for the lack of length? Because I know ideally you want them all to be 6'5" with 34-inch arms, but what do you see from him that helps you sort of have some comfort level with maybe a guy that doesn't have that ideal length?
Yeah, when we brought him here, Barton, we knew that he wouldn't play offensive tackle for us. We told him when we signed him that he would be a guard center type, and he started for 2 years for us at left guard, a year at right guard, and then his senior year at center. And I think his intangibles, the biggest thing that he was able to do is, one, you see the foot speed, and then he's tough and smart. And, we had a lot of guys, 6 years with the Vikings that played a long time for us that were tough and smart and not necessarily the longest type of guys. And, and that's what he is. Dustin's a smart, tough guy. You can see him running down the field here at the second level, dip strike on the rise, working to finish. So those guys are tough, smart, willing to finish. They end up playing a long time. And this young man certainly had a successful. He was a 53-game starter for us here at Memphis. On the best attacks the last 4 years in college football. And he was certainly a big reason. But here you go, Barton, another reason. You see how quick he can get his feet in the ground, get up underneath him. Obviously, he has that natural leverage, but working to drive his legs. And you can see why I fell in love with him off of film. People said, well, he's only, like you said, only a two-star guy. But to me, it was, man, this guy can play for us. And he ended up becoming the cornerstone of our offensive line, here, and kind of help us establish, what we wanted to do offensively here the last 4 years, and look forward to continue. But just even here on this pass, is his stride great? No, but you can see some foot speed. You can see him able to at least play, have an understanding of punch timing. those intangibles, you're exactly right. Is he the longest? Is he the tallest? No, but good foot speed, smart and tough, getting on guys and runs his feet. You know, those guys that look for contact, like I said, and it seems like that's a perfect Patriot offensive lineman, you know, an undersized guy that can get it done.
When I hear you talk about something like punch timing, you know, that's the type of thing I hear offensive line folks talk about, and sort of, you know, rhythm, timing, hand placement. Is that something that you like to see on film? Is that something that they sort of either have or they don't, or is that something that you're able to instill in them and drill in them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've had guys that have come here that have, you know, been really well coached out of high school, and then others that haven't. And that's our job, and that's my job, or was my job as the offensive line coach, is to get that taught. And I've, you know, to be honest, that's one of the things I've struggled with in my career as an offensive line coach, is fixing that punch timing, right? And you can drill the heck out of it and do certain things. Obviously, the more intangibles they come with, and the, you know, the more skill set they're able to already have coming out of high school to college, allows them to play sooner in his career. And I think that's what allowed Dustin Woodard to play so early, because he was so well coached in high school. But yeah, the punch timing, certainly that's one of those things that's hard to teach and hard to coach. That's for sure.
So, you know, Dustin obviously was a guy that he came in and was able to play right away, and was, as you mentioned, was well coached and kind of had a lot of those intangibles. The next guy we're going to look at is Dylan Parham, who's another two-star guy, a tight end out of Carrollton High School in Georgia. I actually watched this film a little bit before I jumped on with you, just to prepare myself, because I don't even really remember him from high school. But in rewatching his film, he's sort of the perfect projection sort of guy in my mind, because of, you know, the position he played. He wasn't a true offensive tackle or offensive lineman. Can you talk about sort of the discovery process there, and what jumped out when you saw Dylan? Was he always someone that you projected to offensive line? Because we actually had him ranked as a weak side defensive end, actually, for whatever reason.
Yeah, so I wish I could be honest and say that I'm a guru or have a firm understanding of how these things are going to play out. So Dylan came here as a tight end, and you know, after, you know, a few months here, we're like, man, we're just not sure if he's good enough to play tight end here, and we moved him to defensive line. And as he continued to fill out his body, yeah, they're like, well, we're just not sure if he's good enough to play defensive line here. And I said, I'll take him. And very fortunate, one of those. It's certainly not a projection. Very, very fortunate that he fell in my lap when I was the offensive line coach, because I don't think anybody predicted it. And he's a guy that really came into his own. So his first year ever playing offensive line, he ended up starting for us. And he'll end up being a 4-year starter, a guy that started for the last 2 years at left guard. We're going to get him some center work. I think this young man has an extremely high ceiling. He'll only be a redshirt junior and only playing offensive line now, really going on his 3rd year. I think he's a guy that can play on Sundays, very athletic. If we kind of watch his film here, Barton, like I said, I wish we could sit there and say projected, but that's him in the backfield, number 22. You don't see too many guys lining up at number 22 that play offensive line, but just you can see the ability to run his feet and the willing to finish. He had a high hip guy, big butt, big calves. And so you just said, man, eventually this kid will be able to finish him. But, you know, you see him able to get his feet in the ground, dip strike underneath these guys, you know, and work to finish on some of these. I know the film's a little jumpy. It's part of the Zoom deal with XOs, but mix and huddle and all that. But at least you get an idea for the type of athlete he is. And so what's happened is he's a really, and again, we try to believe in recruiting smart offensive linemen here, and then it'll carry over. So he's a guy, you know, obviously, like I said, tight end to D-line to O-line, and he's had success because he is smart and willing to play. There you see him playing with good inside hands there, Barton. Here he is coming in on a back block. Under the space and people, so you know he has those physical intangibles, and he's athletic. So it's been able to carry over the offensive line. In fact, when he showed up, he was about 236 pounds, and the other day he sent me a picture of him on the scale, and he's about 292. So he's all muscle. He looks a little bit different than I do at 292.
Are you finding, as I don't know, and this is something that's always been the case, but certainly from my perspective, it seems like a lot of the really good offensive linemen, at least when you look at it in terms of guys who are getting drafted, are guys that have added a lot of weight, changed positions. That seems to be a pretty common. Has your view of what an offensive lineman should look like in high school altered at all over the last 5 or 6 years in terms of just physical preparedness, what their body looks like? Because this seems like the type of guy, again, that is sort of a prototype for what a lot of the really good ones in the NFL draft sort of come from.
Absolutely, Barton. You and I have had this discussion before. I think for us, especially at Memphis, even though we run the ball more than most teams in the country, we'd prefer to have a 250-pound high school offensive lineman than a 350-pound offensive lineman, right? We're going to try to line up and run the ball down your throat, but we'd like to develop these guys in the weight room and have them be athletic enough because we run so many different schemes. I think if we were just an inside zone ISO type team, yeah, we'd want the 320-pound plus kids. But, we're going to ask our guys to pull. We're going to ask them to, truly pass protect, pass sets, get out on screens, run some outside zone, mid zone, inside zone. So the array of run schemes and what we ask them to do in our offense, we'd prefer those lighter weight guys. And you're exactly right. We'd rather develop them here and make sure they're putting on the good weight rather than being sloppy when we can't get them to do what they want. And so we found maybe to be more flexible, but, I'd rather, like I said, all day long recruit a 250-pound guy that's, got flexibility, who's smart and tough, because I do think they project. And just like you just said, other positions, right? Whether it's you see that 6'4" tight end that, may not be fast enough. He may be a 4.75 40 tight end. And maybe some of the SEC schools will say, well, he's not good enough. Well, shoot, we'll take him at tackle because, we know he can grow into and what he can develop. And you got to look at guys' shoulders, right? If they have narrow shoulders or if they got big shoulders and wide hips, they have the ability to possibly continue to grow.
I think this is, Dylan's another good one to look at in terms of obviously he shows like a real competence for locking on people in space and going and locating people on the second level. And I get frustrated. I go to these camps and all they do is pass set one-on-ones, and you don't really get a sense for how they move in space and how athletic they are outside of the phone booth. And I'm curious how much or how important is that in your evaluation? Is that a real central focus? Is that sort of secondary to sort of what they do again in the phone booth? What's how do you view kind of the importance of being able to run and move in space?
Yeah, we put that higher on our priority list. So when I'm looking at offensive linemen, I think the number one thing, obviously, I want to make sure that they are, the intangibles check out, that they have a high level of football IQ and can process everything we're going to teach them on the field. And then as well that they're tough, right? I don't want a guy that's their coach says, well, is he tough? He kind of hems and haws, or, does he finish well? He's got some laziness. Those are the type of guys we want here at Memphis. And yeah, I think it's equated some success. But then when you talk about, Barton, what do we want to see them out in space? I'd prefer an athletic guy. Certainly, we all want maulers. We all want those guys that can line up in the phone booth and handle the business. But I'd rather see a guy get out in space and run. And then it's our job as coaches to teach them, how to continue those things, develop those talents, right? We talked about punch timing earlier. Well, those are things that we need to be able to teach our guys how to do and, be able, take better pass sets or those things. I don't ever fault a kid in high school if he's never been taught how to take a proper pass set. But if you look on film and he's really slow getting out on the screen, well, that's really going to be hard to fix. So we weigh athleticism over anything really.
Yeah. All right. So we got a true freshman, an incoming freshman too. We're going to take a look at Jonah Gamble. He took out of Cartersville this past cycle. Guy that had some other opportunities. Talk to me about what you saw out of Jonah and kind of where he fits in.
Yeah, Jonah's a young man that I was able to go watch playing a game, just like some of these other guys, which really important to me because then they get a chance to really evaluate how they play competition, really get a chance to see their flexibility up close. You get a lot of that in practice because I always say anybody can put together a good 3-minute highlight tape. Even I could, if I put some good music to it, maybe you think I was a player. But at the end of the day, Jonah was a, pretty highly rated recruited guy coming from a great program. And, just on him, you talk about a bigger guy that can run in space. When he got to us, he graduated high school last December. So he's a true freshman for us now. I wish we were able to get spring practice out of him, but, it just showed in a short time moving around that he's that big athlete that we want. And that was so intriguing about him. I think some teams recruited him as an interior guy. And I think he has athleticism, even though he's not 6'6", but to be able to play some offensive tackle here at Memphis.
I'm curious, sort of when you approach the process from an evaluation standpoint. I know how important stance is. I mean, I've been to seen offensive line coaches work at college camps and seen them spend, half their individual period on getting their stances right, and that when you start to look at a prospect, what are you looking for in the stance that's important?
Yeah, I think you look at flexibility, Barton. I think that's the most important thing, right? If they're up on their toes and they can't get their feet in the ground, you've heard us offensive line guys use the word ankle flexion. Well, what the heck does that mean? It's just, can they get their foot all the way in the ground, their heels dug in, and truly bend, right? Are they so stiff that they can't get their feet in the ground? Well, then they're going to struggle with some movement stuff, right? Or if you see a guy that looks like he's really struggling to get down a 3-point stance and put his hand in the ground, well, where's his balance? Where's his weight distribution? Is he capable of bending and being in a stance? We do ask our guys at certain times to be in 3-point stances. And if they're not used to doing high school and then all of a sudden they get down and they're real stiff in the hips or stiff in the back, or even in the ankles or knees, you just sit there and say, okay, or you watch some of these young men, they go get down their stance and all of a sudden their knees bend really far outwards. It's cause concern. We want our guys to be able to play in our insteps and turk their feet inside out so they can, pound the ground. So that's one of those things you see. You're exactly right. You go to these camps and you see all the coaches sitting there bright-eyed staring at these kids, and they're, you look kind of strange looking at these young men's backsides, but we're just trying to see how flexible they are. So
can you explain a little bit more about the importance?
You
mentioned to me before actually about, that a knock-kneed player is actually more functionally, more functional than maybe a bow-legged player. And I'm just curious the sort of, in practice, what does that mean? Because when I watch a guy, I see the bend, that kind of alerts me. You guys got some flexibility, some athleticism, but that's more of like a macro perspective in terms of the ability to do the job. What is it about, the ankle flexibility and the knee bend that allows those guys to do their job better as an offensive lineman?
Yeah, I think they're able to naturally play with, greater leverage, right? So if I'm right here and I'm knock-kneed, it allows me to get up on my insteps and play, and so I can bend even more. But if I have to play on my toes and my knees start to go out, well, then where's my power, right? We don't ever see guys squat with their knees going way the far out, right? We want them going in and, really being firm with all their deals. You don't ever see people do squats on their toes. So all their power, I'm not a sports physicist, so I can't describe it as well as I'd want to about the transition of power from those hips, but I think that all incorporates itself, right? Ideally, I want to see a young man strike, get good leverage and then be able to roll his hips through like we were able to see Dustin Woodard do and even Dylan Parham on that. And I think it's because they have the bendability, the flexibility to do so. The guys that are generally stiff, it's kind of, they just able to latch on and what can they do? And I think you're able to maintain blocks better, the more flexible you are. But I think when it comes down to it, right, we talk about natural leverage and being able to dip underneath guys and come out of your hips. I think all those things are important.
So we talked about Woodard and Parham and some of these guys that were more maybe physical projections. I'd love for you to break on Obeneze, who was more of a sort of a sure thing from the physical side of things, but maybe less of a sure thing in terms of the technique and sort of what we actually put on film, because he was a guy we actually had rated as a 4-star kid. That was a big recruiting win for you out of Nashville, and he's turned out to be a good player for you. I'm curious, what are the things that caught your attention out of Obeneze?
Yeah, you obviously, if the screen is shared right now, you can see, obviously he had almost every offer in the country, and he's a young man. When you walk up on him, you say, wow, that's what an NFL tackle should look like. And he's a legit 6'7", with 36.5-inch arms, which would put him as, one of the longest arms at the combine. This was as a junior in high school. And so you see those type of deals. He was raw, young man by way of Nigeria, by way of Nashville, very mature, and I knew would take time to develop. Everyone said, well, you got this 4-star, he must be able to start immediately as a freshman. And I actually told the Obeneze coming out of high school, like, look, you're gonna have to sit for a year and learn how to play football. But he's got the intangibles, right? There's no doubt about it. He's got all these God-given talents, but he works extremely hard. And, you're able to watch him at practice. And sometimes when he puts his hands on you, you see these guys, out of Davidson Academy that, were swimming, couldn't even get near him. So he's just a rare athletic talent. And he's one of those, right? He'll play on Sundays, but every single day you see a progression. And I think he's one that, you watch his film compared to Dustin Woodard's high school film, it's not as good. And, Dustin Woodard was a 2-star, but also a 6'1" young man. And then Obeneze being a 6'7" guy with the rare talent that we knew has a chance to be a budding star, and I think he's working his way that way.
He's one to me that it's interesting to see like the body quickness there, and I think about suddenness in offensive linemen and offensive tackles, and I don't know if you would articulate it differently, but is that something that is sort of an important element when you're recruiting, at least on the edge and the perimeter?
Absolutely. Right. Can he explode out of his stance? Can he get back? Because even if they're 6'7", they can't get back out of their stance. They'll end up like a turnstile, and people will run by them with speed. You can get these 5'8" high school defensive ends that run right by them because they're not explosive enough to get out of their stance. Like, even if you look at this first clip of Obena, right, he's playing up on his toes, and he's a 6'7" kid playing at 6'9". So you'd want to say, okay, well, these are things you hope to improve, but you see him at least working to finish, so at least he has it in him. Right, you see some foot speed here, kicking back out of his stance. You'd like his punch time to improve a little bit, but it's enough to be able to show you riding around what he's capable of doing. To me, Barton, that was so unique. You say, okay, well, man, this kid's able to do it. And if you can just get where everything starts, and he's just like any other offensive tackle, right? There's going to be some good clips and some bad clips, but he's a guy, I watched practice as many times as the NCAA would allow me and go to his games. And, for him, it was just, I knew this guy was a limit. It was just going to take some time. But here you can see him again, left tackle, just really super long, right? Playing up on his toes. And maybe you don't want those hips a little bit lower, but you can see at least willing to strike and try to finish. I used to tell him he looks like a long giraffe, but now he's filled into his body. He was a guy that came to us, Barton, at 272 pounds and is now 320 pounds and doesn't have an ounce of fat on him. And, our strength coaches, kudos to them, have done it the right way with him. Better, right? Is he a finished product? Heck no. But, playing a little high, we just got to continue to work on getting his hips low, but you've been able to see him capable of doing so.
Is this the kind of player that you can see the film and know he's a guy, or is this the kind of guy you've really got to kind of get your hands on in a camp setting, see what he can respond to, see what sort of see what the body movements are capable of from again, flexibility and playing low and doing the things you're going to have to ask him to do, or can you see enough on just the film to be sort of feel like he's your kind of guy?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of those things that every offensive line coach says, well, I got to go see him, before I can make sure that he's the type of guy I want. That's just, we're weird that way. You see it on film, and I think there's very few high school offensive linemen you sit there and put on the film and say, that's exactly what I want. We always want reaffirmation as coaches. I want to see it in person. I want to see how quick he can move his feet. But I do think, the majority of the guys that we offer here at Memphis, the film speaks for itself, and we see it and we're like, okay, that's exactly who we want. It's happened with, a young man offensive lineman we have committed now. I actually had the opportunity to see him play in person, but had offered him just based off of film. And then when I went and watched him play in person, I said, wow, that's a guy we want. But, here you can see Obina, you see the foot speed. If you tell me, oh, this young man's 6'7", 274 pounds in this film in high school, as a junior high school, you say, wow, well, it's going to be a hard pass to find, too many other guys in the country that can do something like that at that size. They have such an upside. So for us, this guy was a no-brainer off it, and then was able to see some stuff, being able to watch him play live. A lot of things that, he's continued to prove upon. You see the false step here with his left leg going back, but guess what? That's our job as coaches to get that fixed. And, every day of practice, we're constantly working to get things of that nature heading in the right direction.
All right. So this has been great because you've sort of shown some film of a lot of different body types, different types of players, different sort of developmental trajectory. So when it begins for you and you're talking about sort of the beginning of your evaluation process, what is probably the most non-negotiable trait, whether it's physical or otherwise, that you just got to have to get on your board, on your recruiting board?
Yeah, Barton, if they're not tough, it's really hard to play offensive line here. I think that's the biggest thing is, I want our coaches to do their homework and they'll call that, the head coach of the high school, talk to the offensive line coach. And, If they say, well, you know, he's not that tough, well, pass. I don't care how athletic they are, even how strong they are, or how many stars they have or don't have. If they're not tough, that's a non-negotiable, right? You know, we've dealt with, okay, maybe this guy has some size and smarts and may not be as athletic, or we've gone with, hey, this guy's like Dustin Woodard, 6'1.5", but really physical, really smart, and has good foot speed. Well, you know, it worked out in our end. Now, does that mean we're going to go take a bunch of 6'1" guys? Because as soon as you put this video out there, I'm going to have every coach in the country say, I got the next Dustin Woodard for you. And that's what's happened. But that's okay. But, you know, they can keep sending us the Obina Eze's too as well.
That's right. Well, look, this has been fantastic. As you know, I've got a lot of respect for what you do and what's the product you put on the field. And, you know, congratulations on the new head gig in Memphis. I know you're going to continue to put out great offensive lines, and really appreciate you giving a little peek behind the curtain to see how
Barton,
you do it.
Yeah, absolutely, Barton. I appreciate it, man. Look forward to hopefully you come this way down from Nashville and come visit. You know, Memphis is a special place. We got a lot of wonderful things going on here. A great city, great community, a great university, and our football program is going to continue to head in the right direction.